Namaste and a very warm welcome to the official podcast of the Indian Journal of Anesthesia, the voice of the Indian Society of Anesthesia. In each episode, we bring you conversations with leading anesthesiologists, researchers, and educators from India and across the globe who are shaping the future of our specialty. We also discuss landmark articles from IJA, clinical pearls, emerging trends, and the real world challenges we face in anesthesia, critical care, and pain medicine. Whether you're on call duty, between cases, or commuting, join us as we translate evidence into practice and bring meaningful change to patient care. So, without much ado, let me hand it over to our host for today's episode, Dr. Milan Vimitragotri.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of IJA podcast, where science meets practice in anesthesia. I am Dr. Milan V. Mitragotri, and it is my special privilege to host this episode. Today's discussion centers around an important and timely topic in our specialty, that is, gender related barriers to career progression in Indian anesthesiology. We have with us the authors of the original article as well as the authors of the accompanying commentaries of the article, both which add valuable perspectives to this conversation. To begin this podcast, I now would like to invite Dr. Madhuri Kurdi, Madam, who is the editor-in-chief of the Indian Journal of Anesthesia, to kindly introduce us to the original article as well as its authors. I would also like to invite her to speak to introduce the authors of the commentaries of the original article. Madhuri, Madam.
In this podcast, we will have a discussion on an original article which was published in the March 2026 issue of Indian Journal of Anesthesia. So the title of the article was Gender-Related Barriers to Career Progression in Indian Anesthesiologists, a nationwide online survey. The authors of this article were Dr. Shagun Bhatia Shah, Dr. Seema Shukla, Dr. Rajiv Chawla, Dr. Sweta Gulati, Dr. Charanjit Kaur, and Dr. Nikhil Bhasin. From the Department of Anesthesiology and Critical Care, Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Institute and Research Center, New Delhi. And to complement this original article, we had two commentaries that were published in the same issue. One commentary was entitled Gender-Related Barriers to Career Progression in Indian Anesthesiologists, Perception, Structure, and the Path Forward. It was authored by Dr. Manisha Katikar, Dr. Devyani Desai, Dr. Alla Prasanthi, and Dr. Pratibha Natarajan. And there was another commentary to complement this article, and that was entitled Gender Disparity and Anesthesiology, Time to Close the Gap. This was authored by Dr. S. Parthasarathi, Dr. Edward Johnson, Dr. Manoj Kamal, and Dr. Nishkarsh Gupta. So, but all these articles were published in the March issue, which was a special issue to commemorate Women's Day, International Women's Day. So, to discuss this article, we have the authors of these articles with us today. To begin with, let me welcome Dr. Shagun Bhatia Shah, who is the corresponding author of the basic article, that is the survey, the gender-related survey, the original article. Welcome, Dr. Shagun.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Madhuri ma'am and Bajwa sir and team IJA for publishing this manuscript and for having me here today to participate in this discussion on a burning topic which is close to my heart. Thank you, ma'am, sir, team IJA.
And the authors of the commentaries, we have with us Dr. Manisha D. Katikar, who is the Senior Consultant Anesthesiologist at Balwant Institute of Neurosciences, Solapur, Maharashtra. Welcome, Dr. Manisha ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Madhuri.
We also have with us Dr. Devyani Desai, who is a professor in anesthesia from Baroda Medical College, Gujarat. Ma'am, welcome.
Thank you, madam.
We have with us Dr. Allah Prasanthi, who is a senior consultant anesthesiologist from Guntur, Andhra Pradesh. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Madhuri ma'am.
We also have Dr. Pratibha Natarajan with us from Indira Gandhi Medical College, Puducherry. Welcome, Dr. Pratibha.
Thank you, ma'am.
The other commentary authored by Dr. Partha Sarathi and Dr. Edward Johnson, Nishkash Gupta sir, and Dr. Manoj Kamal. We have Dr. Manoj Kamal here, who is professor in anesthesia from AIIMS Jodhpur. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, madam.
And we have with us Dr. Nishkash Gupta, who is a professor from AIIMS Delhi. He was the corresponding author of the commentary. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, so now that we have all gathered here, let us have a short discussion about the articles and the commentaries. So I think over to Milan to please take over.
Thank you, ma'am. I have gone through the article myself, and it was an interesting read. At the outset, I'd like to congratulate Shagun Bhatia madam for this important nationwide survey. I had this interesting question, madam. What inspired you and your team to study these gender-related barriers in Indian anesthesiologists? And why do you feel this question needs to be addressed now, ma'am?
Thank you, Dr. Millen, for your interesting question. Actually, we were motivated by a growing disconnect between what is assumed about anesthesiology as a gender-neutral specialty and what is experienced by colleagues in everyday practice. As clinicians working across different institutions for the last 3 decades, we repeatedly encountered informal narratives of missed opportunities, unequal expectations, differential treatment that were rarely, if at all, documented or discussed in a structured way. I'll share with you a true incident. I was called upon, from the chemotherapy ward, there was a cannula call. I was a junior consultant at that time, and a primary DNB accompanied me to the ward. And just as I was about to pick up the cannula and insert it, you know what the patient said? Sister, hato. Doctor sahab, aap aage aao and mere ko cannula lagao. That's what he said. And I looked towards the primary DNB. Only 1 week into anesthesiology practice, I said, Doctor sahab, aap hi lagaiye. And then after 3 pricks and 1 sheared cannula, I had to take over from him. And fortunately, in 1 prick, I was able to cannulate the vein. So what's the take-home message here? Point number 1, patients still perceive ladies as sisters and men as doctors. Secondly, it is assumed that our male counterparts, male doctors, are more competent than female doctors. And thirdly, female doctors have to prove their competence through their actions, and they have to do it at every stage and every step in their career progression. So these observations were not limited to one setting, not limited to government or private hospitals or corporate hospitals, and they were common across all career stages, ranging from senior residents, even entry-level anesthesiologists, senior consultants, suggesting that the issue was widespread but under-recognized. At the same time, the demographic landscape of Indian anesthesiology is changing. Women constitute a substantial and increasing proportion of the workforce, yet their representation in leadership roles, academic visibility, and decision-making positions appears disproportionately low. So, this raised an important question. If participation is rising, then why does progression seem so uneven? We felt that answering this required moving beyond anecdotes to to systematically capturing perceptions from both male and female anesthesiologists across the whole country. Dr. Millen, now for the second part of your question, the timing. So the timing of the study is also significant. There is increasing global attention on DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and with growing evidence from international literature highlighting gender disparities in career advancement, compensation, and leadership. However, Indian data, particularly within anesthesiology, remains very sparse. Cultural, social, and professional dynamics in India are unique, and extrapolating from Western literature is neither sufficient nor appropriate. All right. So, cultural, social, and professional dynamics in India being unique, we felt the urgent need to generate context-specific evidence. Importantly, we did not approach this question with the assumption that gender bias is uniformly present or experienced in the same way. Instead, we aimed to explore differences in perception, how men and women view the same professional environment, and what these differences reveal about underlying structural and cultural factors. Understanding this divergence is extremely crucial because meaningful change cannot occur without acknowledging that colleagues may experience the same workplace very differently. Finally, the study was driven by a forward-looking objective. Beyond identifying barriers, we wanted to inform solutions, particularly around, mentorship, leadership development, workplace policies, and professional culture. By bridging these issues into academic domain, we hope to encourage dialogue, reduce the stigma around, discussing gender-related challenges, and contribute to building a more equitable and supportive environment for the next generation of budding anesthesiologists in India. So, Dr. Millen, does it answer your question satisfactorily?
Yes, ma'am. Indeed, I would appreciate your study because this study was done in both the genders, that you perceived the differences in the bias which is happening at life in the workplace in both men and women. Your study also proved the point that men are from Mars and women are from Venus, because your study showed that um, female anesthesiologists are much more likely than male anesthesiologists to perceive gender as a barrier to career progression. So, how do you interpret this striking difference in perception, which is very, very unique, which I found unique to your original article, ma'am?
Actually, Dr. Millen, we came to the conclusion that women anesthesiologists perceive it 7 times more, than male anesthesiologists, this gender bias. And we interpret this difference not as a contradiction, but as a reflection of the divergent life experiences within the same professional environment. Female anesthesiologists are more likely to directly encounter structural and interpersonal barriers, such as, pregnancy-related discrimination, unequal domestic responsibilities, microaggressions, and assumptions about competence, which shape their perception of gender as a meaningful impediment to career progression. These are cumulative, small experiences, very subtle experiences that may not always be visible to others, but have a tangible impact over time. So in contrast, male anesthesiologists may evaluate their workplace through a lens of relative neutrality, as they are less likely to experience these constraints personally. Consequently, the absence of direct exposure to such barriers may lead to an underestimation of their prevalence or impact. This phenomena aligns with a broader concept that privilege can render structural barriers less perceptible to those not directly affected by them. Importantly, our findings also suggest, that the issue is not merely the presence or the absence of any discrimination, but differences in how workplace realities are interpreted. For instance, factors such as reduced geographical mobility, career interruptions, or prioritization of family responsibilities may be viewed by some as personal choices, while others recognize them as consequences of systemic expectations placed disproportionately on women. Another example here. One of my colleagues recently took maternity leave. She returned from the leave, and again, after a week, what happened was that she said, I won't leave again. I said, why do you need that? She said, my mother-in-law has, sustained a fracture. I have to look after her, and my child is also small. There's no one to look after her at home. I said, fine. And then she was on leave for 6 months. Then again, she came back, and unfortunately, her mother-in-law was diagnosed with cancer. This fracture was due to some bony mets. So now this colleague of mine ultimately had to resign from the job because it was already mat leave plus 6 months leave. So 1 year already. So, that is how it is. Some people interpret this resignation as a personal choice, while others will recognize it as a consequence of systemic expectations placed disproportionately on women. So her husband was also an anesthesiologist. He continued with his career, but she had to leave. So the magnitude of this perception gap underscores the need for greater dialogue, awareness, and shared understanding within the profession. Bridging this gap is essential as meaningful institutional change requires recognition of the problem by all the stakeholders, not only those who experience it, that is by male and female anesthesiologists alike. It also highlights the importance of incorporating both male and female perspectives when designing interventions, ensuring that the solutions are inclusive, pragmatic, and widely accepted. Ultimately, this difference in perception reinforces a central premise that gender-related barriers in anesthesiology are not solely defined by objective metrics, but also by how they are experienced, perceived, and acknowledged within the professional community. Anything else, Dr. Millen?
Truly, ma'am, you have explained all my questions. It's mostly that female anesthesiologists experience it day in and day out, whereas male anesthesiologists have to perceive. So unless male anesthesiologist or the male counterpart, whether it's the general surgeon or the other staff working in the hospital, in the workplace, perceive what gender discrimination is happening, this problem needs to be addressed on that level. The perception is the point which needs to be taken care of. As you rightly said, ma'am, the gender perception is at a ground level. It's not only at the institutional level. So over to the commentators of the article, ma'am, to your article. Dr. Manisha, I would like to invite Manisha Katikar, ma'am, for the next question. Ma'am, your commentary describes that this perception, this is more than a perception gap, and it lies in a deeper structural and cultural issues which have been there for more than 13 decades, which you highlighted in your commentary. How do you perceive this, and your thoughts on what is on this original article, ma'am?
Thank you, Dr. Milan. My job is already very easy by Dr. Shagun Bhatia, madam. She has already explained the perception gap, what exactly it means. And one more interesting finding, the author of the commentary number 2, two of them have joined here, Dr. Manoj Kabal and Dr. Nishkarsha Gupta. And the most interesting thing about them is the wife of both of them is an anesthesiologist. So they must be the best person to write such kind of commentary, considering all aspects of women anesthesiologist. And as Madam, Dr. Author, Madam had already mentioned, the perception gap I see it as a very big problem, a real deep problem. It is not just difference of opinion. When something has stayed for more than 13 decades, so more than 130 years, it usually means that it is built into the system and culture. So, in Indian anesthesiology, gender barriers are not only about how people think, but also about how training, work patterns, and leaderships are structured. For example, women may get fewer chances to lead, fewer high visibility cases, or less recognition. Dr. Shagun Madam already explained with two examples. At the same time, she also told the same example. The society is expecting women to handle more family responsibilities. This makes definitely the career growth very, very hard. There can be hidden biases. People may not say it openly, but still believe men are more suited for demanding roles, as what the first example given by Dr. Shagun Ma'am. Because these issues are part of both system and culture, they are continuing over the time, over the last 13 decades. So, in my view, the real challenge will be equal opportunities in training and promotions, support for work life balance, safer and more flexible working conditions, and more women in leadership roles. So, awareness should be about the hidden bias. So, this is not just a perception gap, it is a structural and cultural issue, and it will only change with strong and consistent efforts from both the sides. Thank you. I think I'm able to answer the query which you had asked.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Definitely. We've seen day in and day out. Not that male anesthesiologists don't perceive this. There is definitely the troubles which female anesthesiologists, due to structural and cultural foundation, which we are brought up with, is experienced by female anesthesiologists, which is quite obvious. So your commentary has touched on those aspects, rightly so. My next question is to Dr. Devyani Desai, ma'am. Ma'am, you write in your commentary that there is a bias in perceiving the bias when we consider male responses. Could you explain, please, what you mean by this and why is it relevant we understand it, ma'am?
Thank you, Dr. Milon. Uh, Actually, when we look for this study, the very nicely described gender-related barriers in these anesthesia consultants in India. As author also said that this is the first ever study done by them in the Indian culture, and probably the question already being answered also very well previously. But looking to the responses which they received in that study, out of the 255 participants, they received around 252 who disclosed their genders. Most of them were females. But regarding the perseverance of the gender bias, accordingly, around even only the 27.9% females, they agreed and strongly agreed having a gender bias at a workplace, in comparison to only 6.9% of males who perceive the same. And in contrary to this, around 78.2% of males were strongly disagreed or disagree in comparison to only 47% of females. So this shows that there is a high variation, a very striking variation in perseverance of a gender bias. Probably being very well explained by Manisha madam and the Shagun madam, that it is deeply cultured in our family culture or our Indian culture, basically, that the males are predominantly getting the higher positions, or they probably won't be able to see whatever the gender bias which is already being existing. So if these kind of the variation being observed between two genders, already there is a very high perception gap, and if it has to remain, main problem is that if we want to solve this issue, the person is not looking for the problem, then solving the issue, that question might not come, will not arise only. So we'll have to see this as a potential issues for our nation as well, in our fraternity as well, and then only the female genders can be able to achieve the higher positions in the anesthesia fraternity. That is what I believe, probably. Thank you, Dr. Meena. I hope I could able to justify the question.
Unless we perceive, you have put a very important point, ma'am, that unless we perceive and understand that there is existence of such a problem in uh, in our workplace, we won't be able to solve it. Unless male and female anesthesiologists understand and perceive that we have to treat this problem, it won't be solved. On the same lines, I have a question to our next guest, that Dr. Allah Prasanthi, ma'am. Your commentary highlights that there are small workplace microaggressions, small prior assumptions about the competence of a person, and subtle ways in which bias is made, even when overt discrimination is denied. Even though they say that there is no discrimination, but there are some small subtle ways in which biases are done. Why are why do you feel that this softer and less visible forms of bias need to be addressed, and do you suggest any remedial measures which can help to solve this issue, ma'am?
Yes, thanks, Dr. Milan. This gender bias has evolved from overt discrimination to more subtle forms like microaggressions and false assumptions about competence. These are invisible biases and they often go unrecognized, but they have a significant influence on the professional growth, workplace dynamics, and patient care. Why these subtle biases are important to address? See, they have a cumulative impact. Say, it's like a death by a thousand cuts. Repeated small acts, repeatedly questioning your decisions, over explaining the tasks, assuming she may not handle pressure. This gradually erodes the confidence. And this may require the female anesthesiologist to repeatedly prove herself, prove her competence, which creates a professional pressure on her. And the prior assumptions, this bias leads to allocation of low risk cases, less complex cases to the female anesthesiologists. It leads to not exposing them to complex cases, leading to restricting the opportunities for her expertise, progression, and career development. And many times, these microaggressions are so subtle and deniable, so that formal complaining becomes difficult. And also, even if they complain or report, often dismissed as subjective experience. And finally, this persistent bias, subtle bias, leads to emotional burnout, reduced job satisfaction, and withdrawal from leadership and academic roles. So, to answer your next question, the next part of the question, any remedial measures? Yes. The sensitization and training, scenario-based OT or ICU communication training, formal mentorship and active sponsorship for leadership roles, conferences and fellowships to female anesthesiologists. We have to actively sponsor and encourage respectful communication and equal participation. There should always be a feedback and reporting mechanism to address these. And you should respect competence, not gender. In OT, it always matters about the competence, about the decisions. It doesn't matter who is speaking, which gender is speaking. Only matters is what is right for the patient. So, bias always doesn't shout, it whispers. And this is the time we have to listen to these and correct it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. As you rightly said, there should be equitable there should equitable growth at each level, whether it's in the operation theater, whether it's in conferences, whether it's at administration level, and as well as competence should not be based on gender. uh, Coming to the next question, I have the question to Dr. Pratibha Natarajan ma'am. Ma'am, in your commentary, you discuss about the important aspect of domestic responsibilities, child care, and motherhood, which add a penalty to shaping the career. What structural changes do you believe would make will bring about the biggest difference for women anesthesiologists in India? You have already mentioned it in your commentary, ma'am. Please, can you state it here, ma'am?
Yes, Dr. Milan. If you can see, actually, even though as women anesthesiologists in large numbers, they contribute to the anesthesia field. However, if you see, there is this motherhood penalty, which matters really most, and this forms an obstacle in the career progression. See, for example, like our previous author had told, even though there are, even though in a family, even though if both are professionals, the primary responsibility of taking care of a child or a sick elderly or the domestic force, it is being pushed on the female and a female. So, and this basically is always there in our culture. So what happens is when a young mother decides to take care of a child, and if she's not able to find a reliable caretaker for her, she cuts her career. She either does a part-time job or she either goes on for low-paying job. This is where her career progression stops. And it is the same. Like if she takes the primary responsibility of taking care of a child too. So if you see, she stops or she avoids taking leadership roles, or she avoids going to conferences just to take care of the family, which is her primary responsibility. So if any change you need to bring about, it is not from the individual side. You need to bring about the structural change from the institution itself. Like for example, you be fair in evaluating the performance, like Dr. Allah Prashanti madam. It is the competence you need to see, and it is not the gender, it is the competence you need to see. You be fair in evaluating the person, and also be fair in giving promotions. For example, when a colleague or someone returns back from a maternity leave, in most of the institutes, it is like this: the experience is just not counted. You need to understand how competent the person was before she went on maternity leave, and how competent the competency does not change basically. So you be fair in evaluating the person for a promotion. Similarly, you need to be fair in your shifts. Start some shift sharing basis systems, and it basically lies in the responsibility of the institution to do that. Similarly, you need to bring about a family-friendly work atmospheres. Like you need to have a 24/7 crash facility in the institute, or you also need to have a place where your child is being monitored in the institute when you are on emergency night duty or long operating hours. So similarly, as my previous speaker, Dr. Allah Prashanti madam had spoken, you need to bring about mentorship programs wherein you will be able to encourage the female anesthesiologist to take up leadership roles. So I think this answers most of the this answers the question which you have asked.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. These structural changes will play a pivotal role in decreasing the responsibilities, the additional responsibilities that women anesthesiologists face. So, to end the discussion with female commentators, my next question is to Manisha, madam. Madam, as Pratima ma'am already suggested, that she recommended mentorship, sponsorship, transparent promotions, and flexible policies. Which of the various which of the various structural changes do you feel should be prioritized first and need to be done on an urgent basis so as to bring changes in this perception gap, ma'am?
Yeah, thank you very much for the important question. So I personally feel that all four are very important. mentorship, sponsorship, transparent promotions, and flexible policies. But if you have asked me to prioritize one, I would start with transparent and fair promotion systems. Because when promotions or opportunities are clear, structured, and based on defined criteria, it definitely reduces the bias. It also, the people start trusting the system more. Leadership becomes more diverse naturally, and it creates pressure to fix other gaps as well. So without transparency, even mentorship or sponsorship can become uneven because some people may get benefit, others get left out. So the first and most important is, I feel, transparent and fair promotion system should be prioritized first.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Next, we had also a second commentary from male anesthesiologist. So today we have with us Dr. Manoj Kamal sir as well as Dr. Nishkarsh Gupta sir, who gave us the male commentary. So my first question is to Dr. Nishkarsh Gupta sir. Sir, your commentary also reflects on the same survey, the original survey by Shah madam, but with emphasis on structural and cultural realities. How do you think these findings should be interpreted with the wider anesthesia community, including the male anesthesiologists?
So there are many things which we need to think about when we are talking about gender bias and these things. The problem with our system in medicine is that focus is mostly the patients and the patient, and we do not focus on the caregivers and the whatever people who are working in the hospital. So that is somehow lacking in the system. So and we often on hear regarding some kind of issues with respect to some mishap happening, and there is a doctor, especially females, they are being a soft target for some kind of issue with the patient. So beyond basic security, which is there in the hospitals, we need a culture of proactive support. So mostly our system is reactive, but it should be always on, and the system, robust system should be there so that if anything happens, it can be sorted there and then. Well, we could use, we are talking about AI everywhere, so we could use some models to detect hazards depending on the kind of patient who is admitted and those kind of things which can be predicted and preempted. And they could be, and we know all of us work odd hours, especially female colleagues, so you need to have a tracking system so that at odd hours, if they go back to their hostel or to their home, so we could have virtual escorts and we could actually track them whether they reach safely and there are no problems in the place where they are reaching. Similarly, there are common areas and rest areas for all of us, but anybody can actually come in, and mostly you will see you're sitting and patient will come in, okay, Dr. Saab, ye bata dijiye. So it is okay, but still, so there is some kind of safety and privacy, especially at the odd hours, and they should be biometric enabled for an unauthorized access, so that whenever somebody is there doing something, so they are protected from an unauthorized access, especially at odd hours. Lighting sometimes is an issue, and that the most problematic thing is that all of us perceive to some extent the gender disparity and disparity across various reasons, but we always see as a bystander. We do not have a system of see something and say something where we see and report of malfunction, because it is kind of stigma attached, and if we say report something, we may become co-party, and that is kind of things which prevent us from reporting things. So unless we report it properly, unless we have zero tolerance for doing wrong things, unless we have all the people sensitized for regular gender disparity issues, the systems are not going to improve. More importantly, we need dedicated and functional systems which are there in case of event and an emergency. So basically what I'm trying to say is the system overall needs an overall change, and we need to make it more sensitive to gender issues, and we should have systems in place where things can be reported and improved upon as per requirement.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, there is a need of feedback from the from all the parties where we understand what are the problems gender female anesthesiologists are facing, and accordingly may bring about changes. My next question is to Dr. Manoj Kamal, sir. The above survey, which was done by Dr. Shah et al., showed that men and women often interpret the same place, work, and workplace environment very differently. So, as we have seen, there is a perception gap. Why do you think this perceptual divide persists even among colleagues working in the same hospital, even in the same system? What do you feel is the reason for this perception gap?
Thank you, Dr. Milan. In my opinion, the perceptual divide is because of the experience of the workplace is differently encountered by the different genders. So as we all see that there are women are encountering higher level of discrimination, there is implicit biases there are, and there is structural barrier along with the societal responsibility that makes their environment is different than the male, and these factors shape their interpretation of same environment is different than the men because they are not directly experiencing or recognizing their inequalities, and consequently the divergence in the perception reflects difference in the lived experience rather than the difference in workplace itself.
On the same with respect to this question, I should agree that the male commentators and the female commentators who have joined us today are on the same line. There is definitely both feel that there is the person who is experiencing the pain, the experiencing the bias, and those who are perceiving the bias are different. That's why there is a perception gap. So again to the next question, coming to the next question to Dr. Manoj Kamal sir, as you mentioned in your commentary, uh, and as Shah madam said in her podcast today, in this podcast, that surgeons, nurses, patients many a times unconsciously associate authority and technical competence only with male doctors. Do you feel and have you experienced that this affects female anesthesiologists, and how?
Just like Dr. Shagun is highlighted in their comment that whenever she went to the ward for putting the cannula, they asked to put the cannula by the male doctors. But at the same time, this is unconscious, I can say, because if she introduced herself that myself Dr. Shagun Gupta and he is my assistant, then definitely patient want to put cannula by her only. So this is unconsciously and doubt which sometimes created by doctor, surgeon, or sometimes OT staff, and they by this they reduce trust in their clinical decision in the OT, and they need to prove repeatedly herself that and fewer opportunities in the leadership roles the females are exposing, and there is subtle undermining in the team dynamics. Such bias can also affect the in further communication pattern where women inputs may be questioned and overlooked more often than their male counterpart. And over the time, these experiences contribute professional dissatisfaction and hinder the career progression and reinforces the perception of unequal work environment.
Yes, sir. As you rightly said, when it comes to male anesthesiologists, authority is generally associated with them. But when it comes to female anesthesiologists, even though they are senior or even though they are in an authority position, they have to state that they are in a responsible position. Only then the doctors, nurses, or the surgeons associate authority with them. So this has to change, and in a due time, once this is done, the things will fall into place. So my next question is to Nishkar Gupta sir. Workplace safety, you mentioned about workplace safety earlier. So, what changes do you think need to be done in the workplace to make it more safer and more inclusive? Though you have mentioned that we have to take care of their working hours. But what do you think can be done to make the workplace more safer and more inclusive?
Uh, Thank you, Milan. Actually, to be honest, the I probably flipped the questions. No worries. So workplace safety, I broadly touched upon. And what we need to do is that not only the patients, but the the healthcare workers who are working in the hospital are as important. And we need to have structural changes in the system where the workers, especially the females, they feel wanted. They are being taken care of. At all times, we have enough system in place where they can be uh, either we have a cab system or some tie-ups which they can be safely sent to their homes. We have a system in place where the system is well lighted, and whatever common places we have on duty hours, we have a biometric enabled system so that unauthorized access can be avoided and limited. Having said that, we must agree that most of the, especially in anesthesia, the most of the leaders in anesthesia are females. So, so that is, you can say the flip side or the other side of the coin. So, if we do have some gender disparity issues, but still, because anesthesia is taken up by females most, and across, especially in Delhi and probably across the country, a lot of places the leaders are females only, and that they're leading the show, including Manisha ma'am and our IJA editor, Dr. Madhuri. So we have to think beyond and ensure that systems are in place for everybody, even if they, because once you reach up the ladder, it is much easier. No, you are able to handle things. But what about somebody who is coming for the first time, who are relatively new, and because this incidence of IV cannula we had in our system also. So we had a resident, DM resident, and there was a patient who had come, and I was also there. And so the patient insisted that Doctor Sahab, aap laga lijiye, हमें नस से नहीं लगवाना है. So that is a general perception about among the public. It is not about a physician ill-treating a fellow female physician. It is about the perception in the public which needs to change and which needs a larger kind of structural discussions, and not only in the community. Talking about the previous question, so I will add a few things. That this article is one of the landmark articles which tends to suggest structural imbalance in the system at various places. And we do agree that there is some hidden bias which may not be overt at many places, but it does occur, and which may affect the patient care and overall team performance. So typically when you have a group, people will tend to, and if there's a so female and male group, and typically they'll tend to ensure that the team is being led by a male. So this will happen many times. So we have to build this up further and ensure that it is not only among the community, but beyond the community, the respect. So female is source of strength in the across the country, and that needs to be ensured in the workplace and all arenas in our system. I hope this answers the question, Milan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Throughout this session, we have noticed that two important things. There is inequity, and the other is there is perception gap. Definitely, there is a perception gap as well as inequity when it comes to male and female anesthesiologists. So, before we wind up, I have one final question to all the panelists or all the commentators here today. First, to Shagun Shah, madam. Madam, what one change would you suggest to bring about? We have been discussing about the perception thing, but what one change would you like to bring about in the next 5 years to bring about equitable distribution when it comes to gender, when it comes to equity in the next 5 years? How can anesthesia be equitable when as a profession itself?
All right. I had to prioritize a single change, let me think, it would be the institutionalization of structured mentorship and sponsorship programs within the anesthesiology departments and professional societies as well. Unlike informal guidance, structured programs ensure that every early and mid-career anesthesiologist, especially women, has access to consistent mentorship, career such as leadership roles, conference faculty positions, and as well as research collaboration. The key distinction here is sponsorship, not just advising, but advocating. So this one intervention has a multiplier effect. It directly improves career progression and leadership representation. It builds confidence as well as, professional visibility. It helps navigate career interruptions and work-life integration challenges. And it creates role models. The mentor will be the role model of the mentee for life, which in turn sustain the pipeline. So they should be formally embedded and monitored. So every trainee or junior consultant is assigned mentor on joining the department. And the mentor-mentee pairing, this should be based on career goals like academic goals, the clinical goals, or the leadership goals, and also subspecialty interests. So the mentor-mentee should have common interests, be it cardiac anesthesia, neuro, or critical care. And finally, these mentorship activities should be defined. There should be, say, quarterly one-to-one meetings, which should be mandatory, and these should be documented also. And then there should be annual individual development plans, should include, say, publications. How many publications does the mentee has under the mentorship of a particular person? Conference participation, skill development for fiber optic, for DLTs, for ultrasound guided blocks, etc. And of course, leadership goals. And then guidance should not be limited to academics. It should also include work-life balance. If you have any problem, you can discuss it with your mentor, even personal problems. Then maternity, paternity, transitions can be discussed. And of course, academic progression pathways. So I feel structured mentorship and sponsorship programs are the single most thing I would advocate, for, on over the next 5 years. The system change has the potential to shift culture, reduce perception gap, measurable improvement in equity across the entire anesthesia workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Dr. Millen, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, as you rightly, as an author of the original survey, you have said that mentorship program at the at the earliest stage, whenever a person joins an institution, is necessary, as well as sponsorship program. So, over to the commentators, female commentators to the original article. Um, I request Devyani, madam, what would be the equitable change which you would like to bring in the next 5 years? Like what change in the field of anesthesiology you would like to bring about any equitable change in the field of anesthesia, ma'am?
Yeah, one and the most important aspect, which is already being said by Manisha Madam, that is a transparent promotion, which is the foundation stone, I believe, for equality between two genders. So if these remain transparent, see, these some biases always remain hidden, and if these remain transparent, then the some structural potentially becomes more and more uh, strong, and then after, I think the kind of the independence from the favorism or from any of a goodwill, that will not be existed. So in my opinion, probably the transparent promotion is the foundation stone. And then after the mentorship, the sponsorship, without these transparent promotion, I think this may not be so much helpful in the advancement of any of a woman career. Even the flexible policies also requires in any of the advancement for the woman's career, but it has to be in the beginning to be followed after the transparent promotion systems.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Manisha, ma'am, you would like to add anything to that?
Yeah, Devayani madam had
You
already
have-
given the answer. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
If you
Yes, ma'am.
ask me to choose one change, it will be a clear, transparent system for giving opportunities, not and promotions and opportunities not only for the academic careers but also for leadership roles. So these are also this is also very important. And the transparent system, when the process is fair and visible, then definitely the outcome will be much better. So I would also like to have the same clear, transparent system for giving opportunities and promotions.
Thank you, ma'am. Over to Manoj Kamal, sir. What what one single change you would like to bring about to make it more equitable, the field of
Milon, shall we
anesthesiology?
ask Dr.
Nishkar,
Prasanthi
sir.
Madam also? Prasanthi Madam.
Okay. Allah Prasanthi, madam.
As Dr. Manisha ma'am and Dr. Devayani ma'am I have already told, it is transparent promotions and which provides opportunities, which will create more and more efficient female anesthesiologists, so that they need not depend on mentorship or sponsorship. Their competence should speak. Their competence itself will pave the ladders for their career progression. That's what I want to see in the next 5 years.
Next, ma'am, Pratibha, ma'am, please add.
Apart from this fairness in evaluation and promotion, next thing is, I think we should normalize women in leadership roles, and we should be in a situation to accept them as good administrators and decision makers and policy makers. I think apart from promotion, this also should be considered, which will be a ladder for their career progression.
Sir, Manoj, sir.
First and foremost, being a male anesthesiologist, I want to say that we should acknowledge the existence of gender disparity and implicit biases is there. So we can support changes in form of fair allocation of the support or opportunities, transparent and merit-based career advancement, and ensuring that female should be inclusive part of the decision making.
Rightly, sir. Next, Nishkar, sir, will you add anything to any
so
particular?
basically, I'll add to. So my view is a little different. So I would go with flexible training and career pathways. So that is a big challenge. And being a female, there are a lot of things they will have to do which males cannot, so that they can keep pace with male counterparts and they manage the systems well and male counterparts. I'll just give an anecdotal this thing. So till 2007, no, Wimbledon pay was much less for females than males. It was almost half. Of late, this disparity was corrected. So why I'm saying so is that it is not about India, it is worldwide. But this kind of disparity kind of is existing in the system. Some things is overt, some things are not so. But yes, it is there, and we can't deny the existence of this disparity.
Thank you, Nishkar, sir. To summarize whatever you all have said, one is mentorship program along with sponsorship. Then, as Devayani ma'am said, transparency, and Manisha madam said there should be leadership roles given to equitable opportunity at leadership roles. Allah Prasanthi madam also meant the same. Along with Pratibha madam, she meant that we should ensure that we normalize women at various levels, including being a leader, and flexibility when it comes to male anesthesiologists. We should acknowledge there is a gender disparity and bring about a change, along with flexibility whenever it comes to women anesthesiologists. So for the final word, I would like to now invite our executive editor of IJA, Dr. Sukhminder Jeet Singh Bajwa sir. Dr. Bajwa sir, as we look at the data, the commentary, and the podcast we had now, and the broader professional context together, would be your message to the anesthesia fraternity, and how we can move on from whatever evidence which we have generated and awareness we have generated to action in addressing these gender-related barriers and build a truly inclusive anesthesia specialty?
Thank you, Milan. I think I'm really thankful to all the audience, as well as our authors, editors, everyone who has contributed immensely to this podcast. General views, then very advanced views, and the scope views. So many views are there actually, which are going to add, I think, much importance to this gender parity when we move forward. And I think everybody has done justice to what has been said today. And it's just like inviting me in the end is like delivering a justice that what has been done, what has not been done is not a judiciary thing. Anyway, but this question, actually, if you had asked 30 years back, the things would have been different. If suppose in the early 90s, if you would have asked me the same question, you see the proportion of the answering at that time would have been entirely different. The next 3 decades have seen not only the progression of medicine anesthesia, but there is a more participation of female clinicians, especially in anesthesiology. At one time, there was a preponderance of male to female ratio was very high, basically almost around say 70% males and 30% females in anesthesiology. Now, if you currently ask me in ISA, we have approximately 59 to 60% females and 40% males. That shows that the female clinicians, they have overtaken this specialty by storm over the last 3 decades. That is almost a parallel to the advancement. See, the role of a female clinician in advancements of medical science is very important. You see the advancement in the last 3 decades, and you see the increase in the number of female physicians and clinicians during this time. So that makes you place the female anesthesiologists, especially in a higher bracket. Now, both Dr. Nishkarsh and Dr. Manoj, they have female spouses, the anesthesiologist. They are handling the family, they are handling so many pressures, social things also, and academics, research, and hospital work, clinical work. But both have been able to make a name much higher in academics, research in anesthesia. Well known, uh, maybe equally or maybe more than that. So you can very well imagine that the females have progressed to a much faster pace as compared to the male anesthesiologist. This is a fact actually we should acknowledge first. As Dr. Manoj said, we have to accept the gender parity discrepancy here. So we have to accept this fact that the females have progressed much faster in this arena, and they are taking anesthesiology by such, I think, just taking the bull by the horn. With so many specialties coming, all the cardiac, neuro, onco, obstetric, pediatrics, the qualities of these specialties, many of them, especially the critical care, also advancing to that level, the pain medicine, the empathy and sympathy factors. You can find these qualities, these abstract values of these qualities much higher in females. This is a hormonal imbalance. I think we have to accept that. The females are much superior than that in these type of things. So, and also, if you see the females working in a medical college or a corporate or institution, the presence of females in that particular department maintains a balance. It maintains a very cordial balance, a soothing, atmosphere. Otherwise, if you see all females in a department or all males in the department, there is never a balance actually. Keeping females and males almost equal proportion or maybe slightly up and down, it creates a very good working balance. That's the quality I'm saying. Suppose there are 10 males and 1 female, and tomorrow there are 4 females and 7 males. You see sudden change of atmosphere. That's what a female anesthesiologist or a female clinician can do to the working atmosphere. That is one aspect we should always look upon that. Even in the research academics, I think there was an editorial, there was a research article also, how many female researchers have made a mark in the national international circles. I think if you take a graph, it has taken it as a log phase rather. In the last 30 years, there's a log phase throughout the globe, not just India. Throughout the globe, there's a log phase, and we are proud that Indian side also we have taken a log phase with the research articles almost touching to around 40% females now being the first authors and the corresponding authors in the research academics. That's a huge number as compared to around 5 to 10% prior to 30 years. So this is a huge advancement. And moreover, our laws are also increasingly at a national level, political level, or whatever social level. Laws are more, stooping towards the females now. They say that although the bill could not get passed through the parliament about the one-third reservation. I don't think so. They require reservation at the moment. They can easily make more than 33%. You should not reserve them. They can cross 50% easily. What I think, if the parties are really hell bent upon increasing the female preponderance in the parliament, why can't they say that in our party 33% should be the females? Rather than putting a gap in that, or what you call the proposition that the parliament they should be reserved. I think the party should have a reservation of 33% females. That would have been ideal. And I'm telling you, if those 33% females are fielded against in the constituencies, they will always win almost 90% result they will show. That's I think the best policy. And similarly in anesthesiology, we don't have to field anybody. We don't have to have a reservation. You can see the governing council members, the increasing number of the female anesthesiology in the council members, in spite of having so many commitments at home. They are serving the society, serving the nation, and not just in the governing council. You see the state presidents, state secretaries, city presidents, city secretaries. At the moment, there are almost more than 40% are females. So you can very well imagine, and all are sitting here, the majority of them have occupied these posts. They must be knowing that how important it is to have a coordination between family, clinical work, as well as society. So ISA is blessed to have all these hardworking females in its society. I don't think so. Any other society, forget about the gynec, where the preponderance of the females is there. As compared to any other medical or surgical society, we have the best balance of the hardworking females as compared to the males. So this is a very good blessing for the ISA and for the IJ also. Now we have a second female editor in the IJ. So that is also type of advancement. I think another 20 years, you may see another 2, 3 more females coming to the IJ as a chief editor. So this is one progress we have made. So that question of gender parity acceptance, I do accept that, but on the other side, keeping the females on the higher side is a very, very important. But one thing I must admit on the male side also, the male anesthesiologists, whether they have anesthesia of spouses or so different specialty spouses or a non-medical spouses, the male anesthesiologists, especially the practitioners, they have the most important things in their kitty, that is the communication skills, adjusting nature, and how to give respect to the colleagues, females, males, everyone. Their sympathy and empathy has increased over the time with the changing scenario of medical legal instances in India, all the episodes happening. They have modified, especially the practitioners I'm talking about. They have evolved into a wonderful human beings. Although the incidence of suicide is higher in anesthesiologists as by census in the globe, but I don't think so that is being followed by India. In Indian, when we meet over any conferences in Indian Society of Anesthesia conference, whether it's a national, state, zonal, or city, we have seen the respect what the female anesthesiologist commands during these conferences. The equal status, more than the equal status sometimes, everybody shares a limelight. There is never a dominant male or a dominant female. It's the gender equality we have seen in our conferences, in all the academic meets. That's how we are progressing. And in ISA, we are really proud that equal opportunities, equal platforms is there for everyone. There is no discouragement, right from the youngsters to the senior most. Everybody is welcome. And I think going forward, among all the specialties in India, we as anesthesiologists, a part of the ISA, will the torch bearers where our female force will show the way to the other female clinicians of different specialties. That's only I can say about our ISA female members. So that's all. I think I'm really thankful that all the blessed members, whether female or males of our ISA, have done a wonderful job today. This was required. And thank our editor in chief, Dr. Madhuri Kurdi, who bore this idea, who conceived this platform to bring this especially important topic. Podcast is not just always academic. You have to have balance in the research, academics, social, behavioral, psychological, all aspects. Only then the holistic growth will occur in the academics, research, and in bringing our society forward. So thank you, Dr. Madhuri Kurdi, and more importantly, Milan. He's been my favorite for as an anchor. I always love his presence of mind and the way he pulls up the things whenever somebody speaks. He knows what to say next. He anticipates and he carries forward. And I think he has grown a lot under the leadership of Dr. Madhuri Kurdi in the department. So, Milan, thank you to you also for bringing this podcast. And a very nice podcast. And thank you all once again. Long live ISA.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So,
everyone.
final
Long
word,
live
I
ISA.
think, from Dr. Madhuri Kurdi, madam.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you to everybody for spending your time and coming for the podcast. So let's meet next time for the third podcast, which is coming up soon. Till then, thank you and long live ISA.
Long live
Long live
ISA.
Long
ISA.
live
Long
ISA.
live
Long
ISA.
live ISA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all our guests for sharing such thoughtful insights, and thank you to our listeners for being part of this important conversation. This is the official podcast of the Indian Journal of Anesthesia, and we hope today's discussion has encouraged reflection, dialogue, and action towards a more equitable future in anesthesia. Until next time, let science meet practice and let practice reflect equity. Namaste. Long live ISA.